Hi, and welcome to my wonderful Knitting Life YouTube channel. My name is Margaret, and this is a channel mostly about knitting and other crafty goodness. Today, March 14th, you find me at my family cottage, which is in rural Ottawa, Canada. I live on an island in the forest, and it is a beautiful sunny day, and it is melting the snow very quickly. The only problem with that is that the snow creates a lot of allergies for me. So forgive me if I'm a little sneezy or a little on the taking too many antihistamines vibe, but that is the only way to cope with this season. And I didn't want to not record because it has been quite a while, and I have a lot of really fun things to show you today. If you are looking for me online, you can find me on Ravelry at My Wonder Knit Life. I am also on Instagram at My Wonderful Knitting Life. In addition to that, I have a Ko-Fi account. So if you enjoy this content today and you would like to thank me for that, you can find me on the link below in the show notes on Ko-Fi. And I have also just opened an Amazon store. So all of my little accessories, my trinkets, the knitting needles that I prefer, books that I've really enjoyed, I have started to log them into there, so you can find all of that information below. I will also try to put all of the names of the patterns and the yarn that I used in the show notes, so you can reference them if you're interested in looking them up later on. All right, so let's get started. I am wearing the wonderful Wilfreda sweater that I just finished. I can call this finished, but I have yet to sew in the ends because I've just been wearing it around the house to see how it's going to stretch. And before I sew in the final ends at the cuff, at the neck, at the bottom, I want to make sure that I'm really, really happy with the sizing. But so far, it's going really well. This is a sweater that has a very open gauge and is knit on larger needles, despite the fact that the yarns that you use, either knitting one or two together, combine to make a DK weight. And I used a strand of Holst Supersoft and a strand of Katia Air Lux to knit this pattern. This pattern's greatest feature is the cables on the yoke. So I'm just going to get a little closer so you can see that. There are two cables that twist, and then you have kind of these little lacy eyelets that develop because of the way that the cables are done. It is a fairly quick knit. It's a very comfortable wear, and it's extremely, extremely drapey. The only modification that I made was I added a couple of stitches as I cast it on under the arms so that the body would have a little bit more positive ease. And I actually forgot to do the longer hem at the back. There are short rows in the pattern as an option, and I just completely forgot about it. I was knitting in the round, and then I put on I started the rib, and I just forgot about it, and that was that. But I usually do make my sweaters quite long. That's my preference. And the one thing that's been new to me, really new to me for this, are the cuffs. So I just knit straight down, and then as the pattern says, you do a dramatic increase in the row before you start your twisted rib cuff. And it makes like a little bit of a balloon sleeve. And I've never done that before, but I'm really liking it. And I find it quite a feminine feature for a sweater. So that is my Wilfreda. I can't pronounce the designer's name, so I will definitely write all of that in the show notes when I finish later today. So let me think. I have been really busy doing an enormous amount of color work along with recovering from a minor surgery, and the surgery was fine. It was just a dental thing. And the only problem I had was the antibiotics, and I felt really miserable. So I just spent the time knitting and letting it pass, but I'm all good now. And one of the things I worked on was my Let me get the pattern out here. This is the Mini Scout shawl, or I think it comes up as Scout Mini on Ravelry if you're interested in this. This is a colorwork and intarsia shawl that is basically a neck shawl or a scarf, if you want to call it that. It has all of these different patchworky sections, a little tangled up in all of my yarn given that it's intarsia. And it is just fabulous if you enjoy color work. My daughter bought the yarn for this at the Twist Festival, and this kit is made by Emilia and Philomene. It is a Quebec dyer, and they had a beautiful kit that I had looked at 2 years in a row at the festival, and then my daughter decided to buy it for me for my birthday last November. And I did cast it on, but I've really just been doing a section at a time and taking my time. I have modified this, however. I am knitting it without the garter edge. I am going to do an applied border later on when I'm finished. And I have yet to decide if that's going to be a garter border, or maybe I will do an I-cord border. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see how that goes and how I feel when I'm finished. So the last time I showed this, where was I? I have a stitch marker. I was right here. Oh, and these are my favorite little stitch marker, these light bulbs. I use them all the time for dividing my colorwork sections in my knitting. So I have one right here. They're really thin, and I don't find that they make a gap when I'm knitting. So they are my go-to for colorwork knitting. So I left off there, and I knitted all of these 2 sections until I came to this next pair. And this is actually the stripe, and this what looks like a little bit like a floral pattern. This is all one chart, and then this is another. And when I was starting this, this striped chart, I knit across, and I actually thought that I had done some kind of a major mistake because I hadn't really consulted the pattern. I was just looking at the charts, and I was expecting it to finish here, but it doesn't. It jogs over, which really does create an interesting, more patchworky look. And I put it aside one night, and I thought, oh, there's a big mistake. I'll look at it tomorrow. And when I consulted the pattern document, I realized I hadn't made a mistake. It just was a further over separation between the 2 patterns that I was working on. So I wiped my brow with a big phew, and everything's okay. And I trucked along and kept going. And I am now at the halfway mark. So I think that the second half will probably go a lot faster because I've really got a momentum going with this now. I've gotten used to doing the color work on the purl side without making mistakes, which I was doing in the beginning. And I did mention before that when I first started this at the end, I did find it quite a fiddly beginning, given that this is a superwash yarn and a little bit on the slippery side. So now that I've got these really nice long rows and these beautiful patterns to enjoy, I'm finding that this is really trucking along a lot faster. So really, really pleased with this and looking forward to how it's going to turn out. So that is the Scout Shawl Mini. And again, I'll put that information in the show notes. And if you're interested in these little stitch markers, I believe I have those in the Amazon store. So you can check those out there. All right, on to the next project, which came out of the naughty corner, where all of my whips have gone when I hit a point of, what am I going to do with that? So this is the beautiful Sorrel sweater by Wool and Pine. And everything is absolutely fine with the pattern, not a problem. I am knitting this in Holst Supersoft and super soft. So that is the rustic 100% wool. and one of their sock yarns, which I don't know if they have anymore because it was a hand-dyed sock yarn, but they have many sock yarns in their store which are speckled, and you can check that out if you're interested. And I was doing a fade, as you can see. So the problem is that this is too small for me, and not just a little bit too small, it's a lot too small. I was thinking I would rip back to where I broke off for the sleeves and add a number of stitches to the underarm so that the body would have more positive ease. But when I tried it on and my daughter took a look at it, she said, you know, Mom, like the yoke looks like it's too tight also. And I have already soaked this and tried to block it to make it a little bit, you know, bigger, with no success whatsoever. So happily, she turned around and tried it on, and she thought it looked wonderful on her. Oh, I think I've got fiber on me. So I think what I'm going to do with this, in fact, I'm pretty sure what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to rip back just a couple of inches in the bottom. My daughter is a lot shorter than I am, so this is much too long for her. She said, you know, she'd like it ripped back 2 inches and then maybe just a 1 inch ribbing at the bottom. And then I have the sleeves to do. So this is coming out of the naughty corner. I'm going to finish it for my daughter. And I told her if I find it on the floor in her room, I will give it to her sister. So hopefully she will take good care of this. And she also knows that this is not to go in the wash. And now that I'm thinking about washing this, I do realize that I mentioned the wrong yarns. This is Holst Supersoft sock yarn, hand-dyed, and it is held with alpaca, the titicaca base. So that's why it is so soft while I'm holding it. That alpaca is amazing. And that was the first thing my daughter said was, Mom, this is so soft and it's not itchy. So I think that was another reason why she really, really liked it. Anyway, I'll see if I can get that finished for her. Don't want to end up with too many sweaters that have sleeves on the go because that's just a lot to cope with. I don't like sleeves very much. I have to do the magic loop. I don't like DPNs. I don't like the small circulars, even though I do have them. So magic loop and sleeves it's long. All right, so I've got something else really, really special here to show. So when I wasn't feeling well, I really just took advantage of the time and I just went like crazy on my purple Albertine. I'm just going to do a couple of buttons up here at the top. I finished so many things on this. This is a pattern by Sidsel Hoivik. And if you're ever looking for inspirational eye candy knitting, go and take a look at her web store because she just does amazing, amazing color combinations. She does lots of embellishing on her knits, which I find are so much fun. And I might fall into the camp occasionally when I make her knits of being a product knitter. I'm 99% of the time a process knitter. I like something that gives me a little bit of a challenge, something new and adventurous. But this is a combination of the two because I really, really love her projects and I want to wear them. This is my third jacket that I have made of Sidsel Hoivik's. I made the Forest Star Cardigan, which is a pattern in her book. I think it's called My Favorite Knitted Treasures. And by the way, she just had a second printing of that book. So if you are interested in it, now would be the time to take a look and buy yourself a copy because I don't know how many she had in that edition made. And it's a spectacular book. There's at least 90% of what's in there. I would love to have the time to knit. So it's not one of these books where there's just one thing. It's everything I love. All right, so I have completely, well, I should be honest, almost completely finished the jacket part of this project. It is a steeked cardigan, and when you are in her store, She gives you the choice of adding the buttons if you want to. They're mother of pearl buttons, and these ones are purple. So you can order them, or you can buy something of your own if you wish. There is duplicate stitch. So let me take a step back. This jacket is made with the two colors, the cream and this purple. But all around here, all around this design, is duplicate stitch in a third color. And there are sequins with little beads in here. And that goes all around the bottom and all around the bottom at the back. Right here, okay? There's also this wonderful motif at the back that has duplicate stitch using a couple of colors in the color palette, along with those sequins, which I just love that part. I find this is just beautiful. But one thing I'm going to have to do with this jacket is wear my hair up, because I have a feeling my hair might catch in the sequins, but that's okay. That's not a hardship. All right, so I finished all of that. I sewed the buttons on because I also finished the button band. And the button band is a steek cover sandwich. You know, I don't even really know what the name would be. One of my viewers said this is a facing. So if you don't look at this piece, you knit a section, you pick up your stitches, you knit a section, you do a purl row, you keep knitting, and then you sew this down over your steek. So your steek is permanently encased right here. And I actually felted that steek, and it's not going anywhere, and now it's also enclosed in the steek sandwich. When you've got that done, you pick up on the purl bump the crochet with a crochet hook. You pick those up and then you start crocheting out to make the button band. And in addition, there's decorative crochet here and a decorative crochet edging that goes all the way around the whole jacket, as well as the collar. So that's something that is done the entire way around. It's not complicated crochet. It's fairly simple stitches. If you don't know how to do that, you could always look it up on YouTube. The final decorative edging, I believe, is a reverse single crochet, which I find not easy in a sport weight of yarn. So I did what did I do? I did a twisted single crochet, and it kind of does the same thing. And it works just fine. So I'm very happy with that. The only thing I need to do is finish sewing up the facing. So there's a facing all the way around the inside, and you actually knit that when you start the cardigan. That's not knit after, it's knit before, but it's there. You fold it over and you sew it, but I haven't finished doing that. But I am using my favorite little clips that I only discovered recently. I used to use like pins and stuff, and they were poking me and really drove me crazy. But I find these clips are fantastic when you are hemming or putting things together. And those are also in my Amazon store if you are interested in looking those up. So I need to finish that facing, and then I can call this a half-finished object because that's all done. I just have my 2 sleeves to do. And kind of as a footnote to myself on this project, when I did the other 2 jackets, I did all the knitting first. So the entire body, which is steeked, I did the 2 sleeves, and then I spent an enormous amount of time finishing everything. All of the crochet, the button band, the decorative stuff, the sequins and beads. And looking back now, I think finishing everything on the cardigan, then going to the sleeves, doing the decorative stitches on the sleeves, and then placing them into the jacket is the way to go, because it really breaks up the finishing with the knitting so that I haven't really been overwhelmed. Instead, I've just really enjoyed the process. I have started both of the sleeves. I'm knitting them at the same time, so they're They're both on circular needles, and they are both at the same point of finishing. So there's a little bit of a fade going on here. This is going to have a lot of duplicate stitch, as well as beads and sequins, and some crochet at the edging. So that's going along really well. I love the colors. Purple's one of my very favorite colors. And so now I just need to pick up the knitting and get those done so that I have this jacket to finish before it gets too hot. That was the reason why I wasn't able to finish it last year, was I put it aside when it got too hot to have it on my lap. And then I picked it up in the late fall and continued on with it. But I'm really happy with how that's going. Making lots and lots of progress. All right, let's see what else is in the works. So one little project that I haven't worked on very much are my Winter Wonderland socks. Can't remember where I left off, but I have now knitted just over 7 inches, which is what I like, about 7.5. And I kind of got stalled on this because the design, which I fell in love with, has white heels and toes. And I just really, really like the white heels and toes. But there's that little voice in the back of my head saying, that's not a good idea. They're going to get like dirty. They're not going to look as nice over time. My friend is also knitting this, and she's just going to stick to the West Yorkshire spinner for the whole sock. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to make a decision and leap over that hurdle where I'm kind of stuck with wanting those white heels and toes because they just look so cute. And that's what I want to do. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So not much done on those, I'm afraid. So I've been working on all of that color work, the jacket, the shawl. And a few days ago, or about a week ago, a friend of mine who was significantly destashing, I believe a year ago, she started destashing yarns like she knew she would never knit with, like acrylics that she'd had for a very long time. And she took them to an organization that make blankets for charity, which is a great way to do your destash. But she had an awful lot more. And I said, well, you know, if there's anything that, you know, you think I might like, drop it off here. I'll be happy to take it from you. And she came with a trunk full of the most beautiful yarn. Like, how am I going to not keep all of that? That's just impossible not to keep. So I guess that's an acquisition. And so I spent like 3 days organizing it. I made a sweater kit, and she brought me project bags too, lots of them. So I made a beautiful sweater kit for my nephew who knits, Alex. He made the Musselburgh, and if you've seen the Musselburgh, the tutorials that I made those for him. And then he was on a video where we talked about his hat that he made, and he's actually made another one. He's finished a solid purple one. So he's really rolling with that now. But I made him a kit, and then I had a friend of mine coming to visit to pick up the foster dog that I was looking after. And I gave her a pile of yarn, and we made sweater kits for ourselves. It was so much fun. And there was a lot of yarn that I've never used before. So I just thought, you know, I want to try some of this right away. So I cast it on the 𝐒𝐫𝐨𝐳𝐨𝐬𝐻 sweater. There is an adult version and there is a child version on Ravelry. So this is my latest cast on. This is the 𝐒𝐫𝐨𝐻 sweater. And this is knit in the most incredible yarn that I think I've ever used. This is the 𝐒𝐫𝐸𝐻 medium baby yak yarn. It comes in 50-gram skeins, and these two colors are emerald, which is the green here, and this one is called midnight blue. It is almost black. And I have an equal balance of skeins. So I think I have 7 of the green and 7 of the navy. So I've never knit with yak before. So I really wanted to see what this was going to be like. And to be honest with you, if I had never knit with this before, I would think it was cotton. It has a feeling of cotton. It's very, very soft. And I did a little research to find out like what its properties are. It is completely hypoallergenic. It's odorless, self-cleaning, like a lot of the wool that we use tends to be. It tends to be warm, but not super hot. So very comfortable for temperate conditions like spring and fall. So I just really decided I wanted to try this. So that's how this came about. And I am knitting, I think it's a large. I think it's the 4th size. And I did add a couple of stitches under the arms just to give myself a little more positive ease in the body, which is something I really like to do. And I've tried it on and the yoke looks really good. And it kind of has like a sporty kind of shape to it. So I really liked that. On the back, okay, so I guess that would be here. They do a beginning of the round at the center back. There are short rows, but here where you hit the stripes, they suggest a jogless stripe technique. I tried that for a couple of rounds, but given that I was also increasing, doing make one rights and lefts in here, I just didn't like the way it was kind of pulling. And with it being a raglan, I started just not doing the jogless and doing the 3 and 3 without worrying about it. And I didn't find that it was very noticeable because of the raglan. So if I was to do that again, I just wouldn't bother with the jogless stripe technique. I also find if you have 3 rows or less in your stripe, jogless tends to show a little bit. That's been my experience. So loving this, can't wait to wear it. I think it would be perfect for the weather we're having today because it wouldn't give off too much heat. But this has been really fun, and I'm just doing the round and round now. And the beautiful thing about the round and round with stripes is that it keeps it a little bit interesting. Those stockingette sleeves and whatnot, that can get a little bit boring. If I don't have enough yarn, I will make it 3/4 or, you know, a long kind of short sleeve. If I run out of the green, because I started with the green and used more of it, then I'll just do all blue on the cuffs and at the bottom. So I'm just kind of winging it. I know I have enough yarn, so that's not a concern. And I've got so much more yarn to play with and figure out what I'm going to do with it. So lots of fun playing with yarn over here right now. All right, so I did a little spinning. So this is plied, and I spun this wonderful, really rustic yarn on my drop spindle that I got at the Almont Fiber Festival. Top of the Whirl spindles is where I got this one. And my cat knocked it on the floor and bent the top. So I'm going to have to carefully bend that back. And she's sitting right here waiting to interrupt what I'm doing. So hopefully she'll stay put for now. Mimi always likes to join the podcast and sometimes really gets in the way. But so I spun this on my drop spindle, and let me tell you, that takes a long time. So what I found was that it kept falling on the floor when I got a certain amount on here. So I figured it was getting too heavy. So I put it all on my ball winder to make a cake. And then I was like, okay, what do I do now? So I went looking on the internet and I found a video, and I wish I could remember who the person was. If I find it, I will link it in the show notes. And what she said is that you can put this back on your drop spindle and ply it as you do that by taking the 2 ends, the one on the outside and one on the inside, and then spinning it the other way back onto the drop spindle. So I did that. And I think that's really cool. Like some parts of it, not all of it, because it's not perfect. Some parts of it kind of look like a spin cycle yarn where you really get that gorgeous color. And of course it looks like hand spun, which is what I want it to look like because that's exactly what it is. But I'm super happy with that. I really enjoyed it. However, do I always want to use a drop spindle? And the answer was no, I don't. I can't see myself always spinning like this. And I've really become interested in spinning and the way that yarn evolves when it's spun. I hate to say process because it's not really processing it, but it's like it's going backwards to see what came before I got into my knitting. And well, that kind of brings me to an acquisition. And that acquisition is a big acquisition. It's this one. So this I had been looking at for over a year. I looked at all of the plastic, cheaper electric spinners. There's, now which one was it that was the 𝐒𝐫𝐸W 6.1? So there's a store, 𝐿'Biscuit, that has them in stock. I went and took a look at them. But the thing is that I'm really not a plastic girl. Like even in my kitchen, I've gotten rid of plastic. I've gone to glass. I use mason jars for storage. And my background is science. I have a biochemistry degree. I was going to be a vet once upon a time. And I just really have that environmental kind of vibe in me. So I did end up going with the more expensive choice, which was an Ashford e-spinner. There are definitely others that are wood out there, but this was one that I could order online through a store that I really like. It's called Unraveled, and that is a store that's about an hour away from me in the beautiful little town of Perth, Ontario. So I ordered it online. I had actually called and talked to the owner about this product. And one day I just woke up and I thought, I'm getting one. I'm doing it. I'm making the leap. So I've been busy learning, and it's a really, it's a good learning curve, but you really want to just pick some rustic yarn that I will definitely use. You know, this is going to get used for sure, even though it's not perfect. I'll probably put it in the color work of a cowl or a hat or something like that. Because it took a lot of time to figure out the balance between the tension and the speed. And then I got really fancy and figured out, and you guys who spin are going to laugh at me, if I stop the machine and my yarn that I was holding out here, if I folded it in half, held it and just kind of put my hand in and folded it in half, I could see how that was going to wrap together and what it was going to look like as a two-plied final product. And that was a bit of an aha moment, because when I could see it, I could see if I was spinning it too much, if I was spinning it too little. And it really is a balance of the tension and the speed that the machine is turned on. I have recently started spinning this gorgeous pink, and this is a labor of love and probably something I need to step back from for a little while. This is fiber mill ends that I purchased just for fun. It was not expensive at the Twist Fiber Festival. But this is not all beautifully laid out, ready to spin. I almost need to get out a bit of like a carding brush, or AKA my dog brush, and just kind of organize the fibers a little bit before I start trying to spin it. But I mean, these are just amazing. If you like pink, this is where it's at. This is so much fun. And I need a little more practice because this is merino and it has a shorter fiber. So that's a little trickier. But what I did buy it with was this bag. And this bag is also merino, but the fibers are already laid out in an organized fashion. So I think I need to take a step back and spin this. learn a little bit more about merino, and then get to this guy. So that it's going to be a little bit easier for sure. But the idea for me is that I want to ply these together. They're both 50 grams. Hopefully I'm roughly spinning at the same thickness, and I can ply these together, and I think they're going to be gorgeous. So that's my journey with the e-spinner so far. I had to put it together. It wasn't too hard, but between the diagram and a couple of videos I watched online, I figured it out. I watched Sweet Georgia, Felicia, from the Sweet Georgia channel, and she had bought one, so she was putting it together a little bit. Now there's Mimi making her regular appearance. And that was really, really helpful. So thank you, Felicia, for that. Made a big difference. And I don't think I have anything else to show you today. This is where I find it tricky, is when I get to all these blobs. That's where the experience needs to come in, I guess. It's on my mind. So if you were just here for the yarn, the knitting chat, that's probably about it. But I do have a couple of personal things I'm going to add at the end. So thank you for joining me today. And if you've enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. So for personal things, we had here a wonderful 2-week adventure with being foster parents to a dog. As you know, if you've already watched this channel, my second dog that I have here right now, the white one, his name is 𝐒𝐿𝐵. He came from Lebanon through a rescue agency, excuse me, called Rescue Dogs Lebanon Canada. And I also have them linked below in my show notes. They are an absolutely fantastic, very small rescue who make a huge, huge difference to about 35 dogs are in their care at any given time. And Lauren was a little dog that was in their organization that they were caring for. She had been found starving and with a broken leg that was taped with duct tape and popsicle sticks. So someone had tried to help her, but didn't have the financial means or knowledge to do so in the right way. Anyway, the organization took her on and they had her leg fixed. Luckily, it could be saved, and she now has a titanium plate in her leg. And they've been caring for her for about a year in Lebanon. But I also have some friends who were looking for a dog. So I had been watching Lauren since they had found her. And I don't have room for another dog here. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and it's more than enough. So I mentioned her to them, and they fell in love with her. But they were working full time. So I said, you know what, I can foster her, because they managed to get her with a travel buddy to come from Lebanon to the Montreal airport. And I went up there and picked her up when she flew in, and we brought her here for 2 weeks. And in that time, we toilet trained her, got to know her. My dogs had lots of fun playing with her, and they came last weekend and stayed for a couple of days, and they took Lauren with them and a trunk full of yarn, because my friend Leslie is a knitter. So she has lots of yarn and a wonderful new family member called Lauren. So I will try to put a little video in or picture of her here if I can remember while I'm editing. So it was really fun. My friend Leslie asked me if I would do it again. It was a lot of work having 3 dogs. We are very rural here, so going out at night is something that we have to be really careful about. I put the floodlights on. I wear a headlamp. I only stay where it's light. I don't go down the driveway where the forest is, because we have coyotes here, and they actually took down a deer a week ago. not like 5 minutes from my property. And we have deer here all the time. So I have to be really careful at night. And once in a while, there's a loose dog. 2 dogs I can pick up, or at least grab one and move the other aside. But 3 dogs is a lot if there's anything like that happens. So I think it was a great experience, but I think 2 for now is perfect. So I hope you've enjoyed being here today. I'm really enjoying putting these little podcasts out once a month. It keeps me in check with my knitting, and I also love the feedback from everybody. You know, the community is fantastic. That is just number one, the big reason for doing this. So thank you for being here. I hope that your knitting is going well and that you are also able to enjoy some sunshine wherever you are. All right, take care. Until next time. Bye-bye.